Welcome back, everyone, to the Next Brave Thing podcast. Today, I am joined by Lloyd Roberts, who is the co-founder of LoanPro and the founder of a charity called Becoming More and the author of the book called Gcubed. Lloyd, thank you so much for joining me. We're so excited to have you here, and I'm excited that this is such an expansive episode for my listeners where they can really be inspired about someone who overcomes a lot of challenges to build a generous, fulfilling life. So I think it's always good to get context for who you are, Lloyd. Would you, in a nutshell, just share some of your story?
Sure, that sounds good. Well, first, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's definitely my pleasure, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy life to interview people. So, thank you so much, and thank you to your audience for investing their time on whatever they're doing to listen to a podcast like this.
Yeah,
My name is
thanks.
Lloyd Roberts. I live in Utah of the USA, and I am married, and I have two sets of twins.
Oh,
So,
wow.
one set,
Two sets of twins. That's
two sets.
busy. Your
Yes.
wife is amazing already.
That she is. So we have a set that just became adults, so 18-year-old boys, and then we have a
Wow.
boy-girl set of twins that are 14 years old. So
Wow, how special.
they've been awesome.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure to have the
Yeah.
opportunity to raise them. So, but in short, I've had just an amazing life, and like you, probably many challenges and many exciting things. And a lot of it has been choosing what lens to see life through. Had some crazy experiences. I went down a water slide when I was in sixth grade, and I got my foot and my leg ripped off. That was a crazy
Wow.
experience, but they were able
Yeah.
to put it back on, so that was great. I was born blind in this eye, and 3 years ago, I got a peptic ulcer a corneal ulcer in this eye, and I went completely blind for about 6 weeks. Not
Mm.
how painful that experience was having a hole in my eye. And I've had a lot of great experiences. Business has been a passion of mine even since I was young. And candidly, I've started lots of companies, and most of them just really haven't gone anywhere. Maybe they failed, or maybe they morphed into something else. And about a decade into running business, I did question myself a couple times, saying, "Boy, did I take the right route to try to start
Mm.
companies?" But my two brothers and I, we were successful at starting a company called LoanPro. And from the outside perspective, it seemed like it's been an overnight success. But earlier this year, the governor of the great state of Utah gave us the award for the FinTech of the Year. And last year, being a unicorn here in the state of Utah. So a company valued at north of $1 billion. So it's been a
It's
fun
amazing.
run. We've done some
Wow.
fun things in the financial industry, some fun partnerships with some great behemoths on how to improve finance and give consumers more control and visibility of their finances. So we're the back end of
Mm.
TechG for hundreds and hundreds of lending companies throughout the US and Canada on how to interact and engage with their customers. So that's on the software side of things. I was the chief revenue officer for many, many years. And then about a year and a half ago, about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, we took a $100 million investment from a company called FTV Capital, and it was all secondary. And so now I run the family office, manage that money, and we do a number of different investments and things of that nature. And it's been a fun run. And
Wow.
so that takes up about half my time on the financial side, the money management side for both me and my two brothers. And, I have a younger sister, and she has cystic fibrosis. And I also have cystic fibrosis. And so from a young age, me, my younger sister, and my older brother, we were told that our life expectancy was going to be quite limited. It
Wow.
started off at birth. My parents were told 8 years old. And then that changed over time, getting up to 16 and then into our young 20s and so on. Well, about 4 years ago, my sister, she was married with a couple boys, and we had just had the first bite of the apple. And I had felt for quite a while that the missing piece of my journey was a fat bank account. And
Mm.
finally, the first time I had a fat bank account, and honestly, it felt a lot like my favorite team had won the big game. right? It was like, oh, this is great. But how do you feel about your favorite team winning the big game a month later? You're still
Right.
happy about it, but it's
Yeah.
not at the same level as the day they actually won the game, right? What about
Yeah.
6 months later? What about even longer? You're happy about it, but it doesn't have the same bite that it once had.
Yeah.
I was driving home from work one day, and my younger sister gave me a call, and she's like, "Oh, hey Lloyd, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing good. How are you?" And she's like, "I'm doing good." We talked for about 5 minutes about who knows what, and then I remember hearing a beeping sound in the background. So wait, Susie, where are you? And she said, "Well, I'm in the hospital right now." And I said, "Well, you started this conversation by saying that you were doing good." And she goes, "Well, I
Wow.
am now. As soon as your fever gets over 105, your body relaxes."
Wow.
And I remember hanging up the phone, and moments later, somebody else gave me a call. And frankly, this individual, their circumstance, from at least from the outside perspective, is great. They're attractive, their bank account's fat, they have an awesome spouse and children, great job, all the things, right? But yet they were stuck on something that was seemingly so small, and it was totally consuming them and ruining their day. I got off that call, and I'm like, how interesting. I have one person that I love. Their circumstances are literally dire, and she since passed away. And yet he was at peace, and she had found fulfillment, even though her
Wow.
circumstances were horrible. Somebody else, their circumstances were seemingly wonderful, but yet they were focused on something that was truly ruining their day, and they were miserable because of it. It set me out on a journey of trying to discover what is the actual formula for fulfillment. Right, in the software world for quite a while, and sold software to a variety of lending companies, small, medium, large alike. And so it made sense to me that there must be a recipe for fulfillment. And so really I went on this journey to try to find it, and went and read the books and went to the seminars and listened to the podcasts. And I felt like what I was consistently hearing was, hey, you want to be a chef? Let me teach you about sugar. Have you heard about salt? Have you heard about flour? There's all these great ingredients. You can create amazing things with these ingredients. And I felt like saying, well, that's great. I don't need to know all the moving parts of all the ingredients out there. I want to make that specific chocolate cake, right? Tell me, when do I mix it? And when do I put it in the oven? For how long? And then what else do I mix and spread it on top? I don't want to mix the frosting into the batter, right? And I felt like my constant answer was, well, all humans are unique. You need to find your own unique recipe. And the
Yeah.
truth is, it just didn't really sit well with me. Why do I have to come up with my own recipe when you've made a delicious cake and you spent your career, your whole life figuring out this recipe? Why can't I just use your recipe? I can in other industries, right? And so I went on my own journey to find out what the recipe was for fulfillment. And I would like to say that it's something specific, like a specific religion. Maybe salvation can, quote unquote, be tied to that. But candidly, I've sat in the pews and had the people before me appear completely fulfilled, and the people behind me appear completely miserable, and they've hitched their wagon to the exact same horse. So how
Yes,
could
it's so
that be,
true.
right? If there was a formula that truly could be used and repeated, regardless of age, race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or all of the different things that can be used to divide us, there should be a formula that could be used to unite all of us, because they're eternal principles that could be found from a variety of angles. Right? I went on this journey myself, and I wrote a book called Gcubed, and the only
Yes.
formula that you'll ever need to become truly fulfilled. And it's a fulfillment formula that leans into three core principles. And those are gratitude, growth, and giving. And realizing that, as awesome as these core principles are, it is not gratitude plus growth plus giving, right? That's how our subconscious mind see it. And that's how school works, right? Oh, I only have 3 classes. I have math, science, and English or whatever. And I got an A and a B and a C. So my GPA, or my average, is a B or a 3. No. So I put in B overall, and I should be receiving B levels of fulfillment back in return. But the reality is it doesn't work like that. And so when we put in an A and a B and a C and we feel that our fulfillment level is a D, we don't feel that the formula is broken. We feel like we are broken. And
Yes.
anytime you feel like you are broken, why do you want to put in more energy into something that maybe it works for you, but something's wrong with me? I'm broken. It doesn't work. And we neglect to question the actual source of the problem, which is the formula itself, because it's not the summation of gratitude levels, growth levels, and giving levels. It's the multiplication, which means magnified in both directions. So if you have an A and a B and a C, you don't get out a B level of fulfillment, you get out a D. No wonder you feel horrible. You get a D level of fulfillment. The opposite is also true, meaning you can put in an ounce of effort and receive so much more. You can receive a pound of results back just by understanding that, wow, I have an A level of gratitude, I have a B level of growth, and I have a C level of giving. What if I elevated my C level of giving, inviting light and love to flow through me to others without pretense? What if I said, no expectations? I just invited light to flow through me to lift and inspire others. What if I lifted that to a B level? Well, now your fulfillment level is a C plus. What if I did it to an A level? Even though my growth is not an A, I have 100 fulfillment points, or I become truly fulfilled because perfection is not a requirement. So Gcubed is a simple formula that allows you to lean into gratitude, growth, and giving, and realizing that there's an invisible multiplier. Call it what you will. Call it Mother Earth, call it grace, call it God. It doesn't really matter what you call it. The multiplying effect it's not changed. And to realize that there's something out there that loves us and wants us to become a better version of ourselves is part of the process.
Yeah. It's so powerful. I mean, I read in your book, well, I listened on audiobook. So guys, go ahead. And by the way, all the profits go towards your charity, right? The book, Gcubed?
Yes. Sure. Every dollar, not just all the profit, but every dollar. And so I'm covering the raw costs, and all of the proceeds go to our charity Become More.
Yeah. So it was really powerful because, when you hear something at the right time, and I mean, life is full of challenges, and I'm like sort of in the middle of facing a challenge right now. And I've heard this all before, and I'm a life coach, so I tell people this all the time. But you said how you see the world is how you experience it. And I think when we're in those lack loops, and a lot of people are in survival mode, and it's like they feel like I have nothing left to give to be generous, like I'm just keeping my head above water. What would you say to someone like that and I can imagine it may not be financial survival mode, it might be relational survival mode, it might be physical, just like you experience so many physical setbacks with sickness and all of that. And so what would you say to someone to get out of that lack mentality or lack perspective?
Yeah. So I mean, we all deserve to be victims. Bottom line, every single one of us do, right? In a cat, if it's that we're too old, we're too young, we don't have the right melatonin, we're not the right gender, we're not smart enough, we can't, whatever. There's victimhood that all of us could reach out and qualify for. The problem is, I don't know of a single category where when you actually reach out and grab that victimhood that we all can grab in at least a category, when does it ever serve you? When does it ever help you to become the version of yourself that you want to become? And I haven't experienced a single time where me reaching out and grabbing the minute power that's associated with victimhood, because there is a power in it. It's lived power. And then when it goes away, you need to amplify it because you feel like that power has eluded you. Right? So in every category, there's a way that we deserve to be victims. But when we realize that we have the choice, if we are the victor of our life or the victim of our circumstances, we actually get to decide. And same thing, we actually get to decide. right? I mean, is it that some people, you could literally be sitting on a white sand beach with the water coming up and caressing your toes every couple seconds with a virgin pina colada in hand and thinking about your pending divorce, and you're miserable, right? Your vacation is beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
but we live here. We live in the mind, right? Or
Yeah.
how is it you could be wrongfully imprisoned, but yet fly, land on the bars and be in a beautiful state,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
It's amazing that we get to choose where we are. And when it comes to giving or inviting light and love to flow through you, we all feel like it's financial first, right? Oh,
Right.
if I had her resources, then I would give. Well, you give 10 cents of a dollar, you're not going to give a million of $10 million, right? It's psychological. But the
Yeah.
truth is, probably one of the least effective ways to give is financially. It's helpful, but what about your time, your talent, right? There's other ways you can give. What about just opening your heart to be a vessel for love to flow through? Saying something to someone at the grocery store that you don't know, you've never met this person. What about just a compliment, thought to pass along to them,
Yeah.
right? It's those small things that make the big difference. And it's not that we're just doing these things to bless other people. Is it blessing them? Of course, but we're actually not responsible for the outcome. And once we
Yeah.
realize that I'm not responsible for how a gift is received, now we're free to give freely. And as we
Yeah.
give freely, the great paradox is yes, others will be blessed. We don't know when, we don't know who will accept it or who will reject it. We're not responsible for that. But what we've done is we've taught ourselves that we're willing to be a vessel for love and light to flow through. And yes, we're happy that others will be blessed in the process. But what's really occurring is we are blessed.
Yeah.
It's like we're a glow in the dark sticker. When light passes over it, we retain part of that light. And that's part of our becoming process. That's why we've
Mm.
named the charity Become More. Is I think
Mm.
the objective of this life is to become more, fill in the blank, become the best version of ourselves. It's this growth and becoming process is where we actually find true fulfillment.
Yeah. And so, speaking of generosity and your charity becoming more, why don't you share what your charity does? I know it's focuses in Cambodia. So, tell us more about, yeah, what the charity's about. And yeah, it's such a beautiful picture. And I love that you're painting a picture of what generosity looks like. It doesn't have to look like money, it can look like time and all of those things. And I think I noticed when I was coming out of a lack mentality, I would notice, like, someone said to me, you need to learn to multiply what you have. And I was like, I don't know, have investments. I don't have all these things to know how to multiply. And really, it was about stewarding what I had in my hand, because I think that we can get caught up or compare generosity to someone else. But I know it definitely rewired something in my brain as I looked for creative ways to be generous. Then I attracted generosity into my life. It was like this, principle of, like, the more that you give, you will receive, which feels upside down. But I love that you're reframing this for our audience, because often we're in that victim mentality, thinking about me, and my lack. But when you put your attention on someone else, you actually, it's so much better for your mental health, like taking care of other people. But yeah, go ahead and share what becoming more is all about.
Yeah, well, thank you for that tee up. I'd just love to ask you and anyone that's listening, think for a moment, just imagine that for the rest of your life, there's annuity sitting there you just barely found out about. And this annuity pays you a monthly dividend that is in
Mm.
far excess to what you need to be comfortable. The rest of your
Mm.
life, what would you do? Like, literally, what would that change in your life? If you didn't need to worry about money, you didn't necessarily have hundreds of millions of extra capital, but you didn't actually have to trade your labor for capital to pay your bills. What would you do with your time?
Mm.
What really, what would it be? Would you be on a yacht somewhere? Would you be off on some private island? Would you just be reading books all the time, watching Netflix, going to your kids' games? Like, what would you do with your time? And it's a little bit more of a, we sometimes have the comfort of saying, oh, I don't get to do that, so I'm not going to decide. But I think there's an actual real power in deciding if I
Mm.
could do anything, what would I do? And because it gets the creative juices flowing. Well, as soon as we take the shackles off saying, yeah, but I can't, and realize, wait a minute, I'm just playing a game for a minute. What
Mm.
if I could? What would I do?
Mm.
I think that's a process that I had the curse and the blessing of going through. If
Mm.
financial strength was no burden, what would I do? I mentioned a little earlier that my younger sister passed away from cystic fibrosis. I've had the blessing of having cystic fibrosis my whole life. I know they're weird, but I've had the blessing of seeing my life through an old person's perspective, right? Almost
Mm.
like I've had the chance to sit down with my 80-year-old self and have a conversation with no distractions and had candid counsel from a better version of myself on, am I doing what really matters right now? Am I doing what I'm going to really care about when I'm old? Right? There's a study that was done, and this was of old people in rest homes. So these aren't really people that are close to dying because of car accidents and things of that nature. These are older people that are at their last days. And they asked them all sorts of questions, but the one that stood out most to me was, what is the number one thing that you regret in your,
Mm.
and I thought it would be, oh, that secret affair, or oh, that business deal where I cheated on something, and things of this nature, right? All things that would cause us to gasp. But it wasn't. The number one thing that old people said that they regret was something they did not do. It had
Mm.
nothing to do with an action that they took, a sin that
Yeah.
they committed. It was something they did not do. And I think when we look at life through that perspective and say, okay, great, if I could do anything, what would I do?
Mm.
Realistically, how would I spend my time? And so I tee that up because we had an experience where my older brother, the cystic fibrosis really set in, and swam at the college level. He was ripped and 210 pounds, and all of a sudden he's down to 150 pounds, and he can't keep an ounce of fat on him. And his
Wow.
doctors had told him that it was the end and that he needed to put his affairs in order and that he had a month or two left.
Wow.
And in that time period, I pictured him in his casket, and me looking over him and thinking of all the dreams that he had that I knew of were dying with him. Then a new drug came out, and a new
Mm.
drug, they call it the miracle drug in the CF world, and it turned things around for him. And he was a
Wow.
professor at a local university, and he got his PhD in economics. He knew the Cambodian language Khmer fluently. He had been over there multiple times in his younger life, but had bills and other responsibilities that limited, and health reasons that he wasn't able to get over there much the previous decade.
Mm.
And things turned around for him. So I said to my other two brothers and business partners at LoanPro, guys, what are we doing? Like, how many zeros need to be behind our net worth before we actually do what we want to do, have the impact we want to have? And frankly, what impact do we want to have? Because that's kind of hard to figure
Mm.
out, like we just talked about. So we called our older brother Wade. We asked him to retire from being a professor at the University of Utah in Westminster and to become the president of a new charity called Become More. And the
Mm.
objective has morphed over time, but it's turned into a twofold objective. And the thesis of Become More is pretty simple. It's this: Americans are often rich in resource, but poor in fulfillment. While
Mm.
Cambodians are often rich in fulfillment, but poor in resource. So this
Wow.
charity is not us Americans going over and saving Cambodians. It's us saving Cambodians and Cambodians saving us. Right?
Wow.
We're a company, we're a country that is riddled with depression and anxiety and comparison. And we see other people's Facebook profiles and their vacations and their beautiful spouses. And we say, I don't measure up. I have a pretty sad life. And we have no idea what some of the other circumstances that other humans are experiencing on a day-to-day basis, right? We take for granted that we know we're going to have dinner tonight, that we're in a temperature-controlled room, that there's some basic rights that are allotted to us that other people don't necessarily have. But yet, they don't know many things that are very natural to us, right? And so what we're doing is half of the mission of Become More is increased fulfillment for ours, for our loved ones, for our friends, for ourselves, through this formula of fulfillment. And then the other half is creating a poverty reduction formula. And this is quite a process. My brother, he has a PhD in economics, as we talked about, right? And so we've gone to the rural areas of Cambodia, arguably the poorest place on planet Earth. And in these villages, north of 90% most of the time of the village is in poverty or extreme poverty. We're talking like $1.90 a day per household, not per hour per person, but per day per household. And they're surviving on this, barely, but they're surviving. But as you can imagine, when they hit a couple bumps, there's not very many options, right?
Wow.
So what we're doing is a unique approach. Instead of going and focusing on one awesome thing like water or vision or dental or fill in the blank with all this great stuff that charities try to do, and sometimes successfully and sometimes not, our approach has been we are adopting a full village, right? Now, what does it actually mean to adopt a village? That's kind of a weird thing. What we're doing is we're coming into a village. The most recent village that we adopted has 1,414 humans in it. And this village is made up of, it's old, young, middle-aged, and all of the above. We are focusing on three things. First one is health. I don't know about you, but if anytime I felt sick, I don't really care about learning additional things and saving a bunch of money. I just want to feel better, right? And such is the case with them. So the first thing we focus on is health. And frankly, like most charities, this is just a money pit. We throw money into it for a good cause. And we focus on clean water. We focus on clean bathrooms and wash stations at the schools and feminine hygiene and dental. And we're in talks with a super awesome charity right now about adding vision to the list. But some basic things to help them. I just got back from a dental trip out there where we performed, dental services on over 1,000 children in the rural areas.
That's amazing.
So that's the first component: is how do we cover basic health needs for primarily the children, but effectively the villages in these remote areas that have never seen a dentist, they've never seen an eye doctor, they don't take prenatal vitamins, they don't have feminine hygiene products or know how to use them, they don't have clean water or even know what clean water is. We've had to change we've had to change what we call the water from dirty water and clean water to dirty water and safe water, because we were still having villagers that were getting water from the old wells. And they're like, look, it looks clean enough. It looks a little dirty, but clean enough. I've been drinking from this for years, right?
Wow.
And yet when we change it to safe water, it kind of clicks in them. It's not about dirty or clean. It's about dirty or safe water. It doesn't have arsenic in it, or it doesn't have feces in it, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the first stool of the three-legged stool. The second category we focus on is education. And we focus primarily on the children. In these remote areas, about 50 to 55% of the kids that are in the age of going to school actually go. So it's not a huge percentage, right? And the number one reason that they don't go is because their family needs their labor to help them eat this weekend, right? They don't know what they're going to eat. Hey, I need my child to work. We're all trying to survive here.
Yeah.
Right? And so what we do is we go in, when we adopt a village, we go in and we meet with all of the parents and the children that aren't going to school and try to help them problem solve. Do they need some tuition? Do they need a uniform? Do they need pens and papers and notepads and things like this? Do they need a bicycle so they can actually get to school, right? Or one of my favorite programs is what we call attendance rice. And this is where we can say to the parents, if your child attends school 85% or more of the time, on a monthly basis, we'll give you the bag of rice. And now the parents say, child,
Incentive.
your job is to bring that rice home to our family, right? It's like
Mm.
$19 worth of rice. It's a lot of
Mm.
rice on a monthly
Yeah.
basis for the family,
Yeah.
right? And so now the
Wow.
child can go and they can learn, and they could also help contribute to the needs of the
Wow.
family. So that's for the
Yeah.
first half of the day, is getting the children to school. And I'm excited to report that in the schools that we've adopted, we have over 90% attendance now of
Wow,
the
that's
eligible.
amazing.
Right. It's so exciting. So up from 50,
Yeah.
55% up to the high 80s, low 90s on these
Yeah.
kids going
I'm
to
curious to
school.
know, like, I love this. It really shows that you've got in there and chosen to understand the culture, and then you've changed, you understand the pain point, and then you've really changed a whole mindset around education, and you're meeting the need. It's almost like, it's so interesting. Did that take, like, changing that mindset of like, go to school and then you'll be provided for, was that, and getting 90% attendance rate, like, did
Yeah.
that take a lot of time, or like, how did that sort of integrate?
Yeah, not as much as you think, because we've realized that there's a quote I really like. It says something along the lines, "If you don't care who gets the credit, it's amazing what you can accomplish." And
Yeah,
so
that's so good.
when we go out to Cambodia and when we meet with the people out there, they don't have a clue that I've donated $1 to this thing. They just think that I'm
Mm,
the brother of the president of Become More, right? It's
yeah.
all the local leadership, the village
Mm,
chiefs, the commune chiefs, all of their leadership. We go through their leadership for all of these decisions to take place. And it's surprising
mm,
how well they know their own people, how well
yeah.
they know their own culture. And so instead
Yeah.
of us saying, we know how to do it, we ask them, what do you need? Where are your pain points? What are the problems? What do you recommend? And
Mm,
we work with them. All the decisions go through them, and they are also the ones that present the solutions to the villagers. It's not coming from the Americans that speak English, it's
yes.
coming from their Khmer leadership.
Wow, that's beautiful. Because I know, being in, missionary culture, a lot of the time, like even short term missions, there can be like a bit of a white savior complex, and, taking selfies with these precious orphans and posting on social media. And I love how you're going in to deeply understand a culture and empower a culture. But I'd love to also hear, like, you mentioned that they give you fulfillment. What does that look like?
Yeah. When we go to foreign countries and we take a photo of us with these native people that are struggling, and we post it on
Mm-hmm.
social media, we're wanting to feel good about
Yeah.
it. But the
Yeah.
problem is, oftentimes that is causing more of a struggle for them than it necessarily is good for them. Come in and
Mm-hmm.
you do something and then you leave. And they
Yeah.
really are looking for something that is sustainable, that isn't
Mm.
a hand out, but is a hand up, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that does take some resource, but it also takes some education, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we are doing, just talk a little bit more about the education component. We're getting the kids to school the first half of the day, but because we're village centric, the village has allowed us to use the schools the second half of the day at no charge. And so we
Mm.
hired a bunch of Khmer speaking, English speaking teachers, and then they go to Become More English school for the second half of
Mm.
the day. They were just going home. Now they get to stay at school and they get to learn English, which
Yeah.
is sure convenient that it's the language I speak, right? But the real reason that it's so beneficial is the international business language. And get this, if you are in Cambodia and you graduate from college with a PhD, your earning potential based on your industry is about 17x the poverty line. It's pretty
Mm.
awesome, right? Well, get this, if you don't graduate high school in Cambodia, but you speak English and Khmer fluently, your earning potential is 14x the poverty line.
Wow.
You didn't even graduate high school. Yeah,
That's
you can see how
insane.
valuable English is
Yeah.
to this economy. And we
Mm-hmm.
have hundreds. We have, well, I think it's 1,200, 1,400 kids right now that are in our English programs right now
Mm-hmm.
that are learning this important skill that provides value to the marketplace so that they can then take that value home to their families. So
Wow.
that's the end of the education component. And
Mm-hmm.
like the health initiative, it just costs us money, right? I mean, we
Yep.
can't really generate revenue with the health and education. We just have to pay teachers and pay for supplies and so on. But they're both important foundational blocks to the last pillar, and that
Mm-hmm.
is creating savings. And
Mm.
these people, they don't want handouts. They're an honorable people. They want to earn their keep. They just
Mm-hmm.
need they just need a little bit of cash flow. They just need a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of education, a little bit of hand holding, right? And then to let them go and do. And so we've done that. We've created what we call fat cow family farms.
Mm.
Now, the cows are different in Cambodia than they are in America. The conditions are different. It's humid, it's hot. These cows look like they have big bunny ears, and the average cow is like 450 pounds.
Mm.
Well, the reason it's so small is because they're emaciated, right? They don't have
Mm.
proper nutrition. So you can see all their ribs, their hips are popping out everywhere, and they only have a
Wow.
calf on average every 2 years. And they don't
Mm.
even get pregnant until they've been alive for 4 years. And 47% of cattle, female cows after birth, never make it to the age where they bear their own calves. That's
Mm.
crazy. Those are really crazy numbers.
Yeah.
So what we are able to do is go in and help them build a fat cow family farm. It costs about $10,000 to do so. We build a barn, we build a fence, we drill for water, we bring in feed that has protein in it instead of just straw. We vaccinate so that they're not dying from random diseases. And the magic of it is we can take an emaciated 3, 4, 5, 6 year old cow and fatten her up for 6 months and then impregnate her either with in vitro or with one of our huge bulls. And now she's only pregnant for 9 months. And she can have a
Mm.
calf on average every year. And these calves are fat
Wow.
calves instead of skinny calves. So she can have them twice as often and they're worth twice as much. Now,
Wow.
this community is a very much a Hindu and Buddhist community. But even more than that, even in a non-religious angle, they have the concept of karma isn't a religious concept. It's just how it is in their culture,
Mm.
right? And so it's an interesting component that we don't talk about much in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Karma is a two-way contract, so to speak, right? Where if I give you a gift, if you accept that gift and you then have the responsibility to pay it forward. And if you don't pay it forward, maybe you die before you have the opportunity to pay it forward, then your status in the next life is lower,
Mm.
right? So this can become a heavy burden if that's your
Yeah.
belief, if that's your standard, that if I accept your gift and I don't pay it forward in time, my status in the next life is lower. Yikes! It could be scary things, right? So in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways, you can see why the crime is so low, and everybody believes that you don't get away. If you go steal from
Oh,
somebody, guess
wow.
what? It's coming back to you. There's no way of getting away from it.
Mm.
Not even if it's not in this life, it will be in the next. Your status will be even lower, right? And
Wow.
so we've built in what we call a karma calf. In short, we've
Mm.
made the ask when we give the gift. What we say is we're gonna set you up with this fat cow family farm. We're also going to purchase an additional cow, put it in the fencing with your cow, and you're going to take care of both of the cows. And you're not going to charge us anything for this. And you're going to feed them both, and so on. We'll provide the feed and the vaccinations and the cash flow for the first 2 years to get everything up and going. And then after your cow has its first calf, that calf will be a karma calf, meaning
Mm.
you, typically husband and wife, and village leader and commune leader will collectively decide who in your village, not a neighboring village, but your village will receive this next calf to start the next fat cow family farm. They pay it
Wow.
forward in their own community. And then
Beautiful. That's
every calf
amazing.
that comes out of the Become More cow, every calf is used to perpetuate the program. So the males will be sold at market when appropriate, liquidated for cash to build more fat cow family farms, fencing and feed and so on. Now, the magic happens at about the 5-year mark. We don't know exactly because we haven't got there yet, but our predictions are about 5.5 years.
Yeah.
At that point, all of the female calves from the Become More cows will create new fat cow family farms or be added to existing herds, creating wealth. However, all the males, when appropriate, will be liquidated at market, and that cash will be used to fund the health initiative and the education initiative in perpetuity with no more American dollars going into the program.
Wow, that's amazing. I just love how strategic all of this is. Like a lot of missions is you coming in and making an impact in like anything that's on fire, basically. But then you're actually thinking long term and investing into the future and collaborating with their culture, which is so cool. It's so empowering. Is there ways that people can get involved with what you're doing over there?
Yeah, great question. So, of course, they can get involved with Gcubed, and I would love for them to, in any kind of
Yeah.
fulfillment here in America. We also are doing fulfillment trips to Cambodia.
Mm.
We don't call them service trips because the truth is they don't need us digging holes and painting schools. They're better at that than us, anyways. But these are for us to go and get a perspective change. We take the people in Kampung Tom, where there's hundreds of people living in the garbage, and we give a man a fish, and people get to experience what giving a man a fish feels like. It's kind of good, but also empty. You kind of know you're perpetuating the problem, but yet you're helping a little bit, right? That's the traditional charity model. And then we take the people out to our villages and we show them the people. We don't do handouts. There's no beggars because you get the action that you commission. Just like in business, if you want your sales team to perform a certain way, then commission that way. They'll start performing in that way. Same with these villagers, right? So everything goes through the village leadership. It's not through us. We're not handing out dollars to everybody that walks up to us. And they get to play with the children. They get to teach them English. They get to assist with doing the dental work and see how many of their teeth are rotting out of their face and gain a different perspective. So you can come on a fulfillment trip. There's also the opportunity to adopt a fat cow family farm. And you're not only adopting a farm, you're adopting a little family. And you might have the opportunity to go out and meet this family if you want to come on one of these fulfillment trips in the future. That's $10,000 donation to sponsor a fat cow family farm, which really that is the keystone of the whole poverty reduction formula. It's the business component. It's what generates revenue and creates more value in the marketplace that the Cambodian people can leverage.
Yeah.
And then the last way is crazy, but just a few weeks ago, we took a bunch of people out on a fulfillment to Cambodia, and I hope they don't mind me calling them out, but Mike and Britt Littledyke, we brought them out, and we invited them to do our largest contribution ask of adopting a whole village for $1 million. And they were gracious enough to accept that opportunity.
Wow.
So we adopted the first village, me and my wife and my two brothers, Rhett and Ben, and their wives, Ashley and Trina. And we've been working with Wade on adjusting the formula over the last couple of years to get it right. Now we finally did, and we're honored that the Little Dykes would be willing to adopt this next village. We've adopted the first village in its entirety, the next two village partially, and then they've committed the funds to adopt this fourth village. We have a total of 85 villages that are pleading for us to adopt them. We have to remind them, hey, everything takes time. We're working out the kinks, and then we also need to raise the funds on the American side of things. But they see that we're a charity that doesn't come in and do a photo op like you talk about and then bounce, but that we're here to stay. You ride your bike around the remote areas of Cambodia, and they're not hanging out in the house or in the backyard, right? It's way too hot. They're under the house and they're in the front yard. And half the kids have their Become More shirts on and they're waving, so bye. It's just a magical experience. kids. So those are
Mm.
some ways to get involved. You can,
Yeah.
go crazy and adopt a whole village for $1 million. You can adopt a
Yeah.
fat cow family farm for 10 grand. Um, you can read the book Gcubed and focus in on adjusting your own perspective and committing to allowing light to flow through you in your life. Nothing to do with
Mm.
Cambodia. To your parents, to your children, to your spouse, to your coworkers, to strangers. And that is half of the mission of Become More, is a perspective and a fulfillment change in here. And then
Mm.
one option is to also have a turnkey way of getting involved in something that we're excited about, in lifting those out of poverty in a sustainable way on the other side of the globe.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And we'll make sure that we have all the links to the websites and the book in the show notes so that everyone can get involved. And I can just imagine, as my listeners are listening to this episode, they're really being invited into a more expansive life that's beyond them. I think the most fulfilling thing is being a part of something that goes beyond your to quote you, an easy life. But I'd love you to just kind of, in some ways, like call out what an easy life is versus a fulfilling life. I think that definitions really give clarity to people and even provoke people to kind of assess their own lives of how do I transfer my own life from walking this easy life into a fulfilling
Yeah.
life. But yeah, I'd love to, yeah, for you to create some definition around that for people.
No, well, thank you. I think that in a variety of cultures, but definitely in this Western culture, we are sold a bag of goods that just is not accurate. We are sold
Mm-hmm.
that what we should chase is ease and comfort. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I retire, oh, as soon as my kids are out of the house, oh, as soon as I can afford that vehicle, then fill in the blank with something good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not reality. It's just not. It's in some ways it's opposite of that. We require mindset adjustment, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all of us. I'm not saying that we're not entitled to stuff because we clearly are. But let's pretend for a moment that you are entitled to zero. You're not entitled to the temperature in your room, the food in your belly, the clothes on your back, the money in your bank account, love from your parents, children, or spouse, or boyfriend or girlfriend in the way you want to receive it. You're literally entitled to nothing. If you actually could make the cognizant choice of being entitled to nothing, you don't even have to choose to be grateful. You organically, all the cracks are naturally filled in with gratitude. You don't even have to choose. It's one of the biggest hacks I'm aware of. Root out
Mm-hmm.
entitlement. You don't even
Mm-hmm.
have to say, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. You don't have to do that at all. You organically become excited about the sunset, excited about the temperature in the room, excited about that somebody showed you some attention. Whatever it is, you become organically grateful without needing your circumstances to propel you to gratitude, right? We all try to do
Yes.
that. We try to go and
Mm-hmm.
root with our team, and then if the team wins, then yay, we all high five and jump up and down. We seek out those experiences where circumstances cause us to be grateful, not realizing that we are then becoming victims of our circumstances. We got to wait
Mm.
around until a good circumstance finds us instead of
Yeah.
us choosing to root out entitlement
Mm.
and organically being filled with gratitude. And then,
Yeah.
second, we're sold that you don't need to chase growth. The growth
Mm.
is not important. Rather, comfort and
Mm.
ease is important. Oh, as soon as I retire, I'm going to sit in my lazy boy and watch TV, and then I'm going to go sit on the beach and suck down a pina colada and all whatever the story is. It's a story of relaxation. It's a story
Yeah.
of ease. It's a story
Yeah.
of comfort. And
Mm.
my strong experience is we don't grow in the comfort zone. As
Mm.
painful as the growth zone is, that's where we grow, right? Imagine going to the gym and not having any discomfort and
Mm.
expecting growth to occur. You're just going to
Yeah.
sit down and watch other people work out. You're probably not going to experience much growth yourself. And that
Mm-hmm.
process of growing, and whatever it is, it doesn't have to be building a behemoth company right? It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
becoming a movie star or something grand. It could be literally reading the book. It could be planting the garden. It could be
Mm-hmm.
making the call, sending the text message, putting
Mm.
your phone down and looking someone in the eye and really listening to them, not thinking about what you're going to say next, but just thinking about what they're saying. All
Yeah.
these are growth, which is distinctly different than success. Now,
Mm.
success is often the byproduct of sustained growth, but it is uniquely different than actual growth. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about. Is everybody will say, "Oh wow, LoanPro was overnight success." Well, it's the growth that got us there. It's the success
Yes.
that's flashy, but it's
Yeah.
nothing without the growth. And if you stop growing, it decreases. I view
Mm.
this like a boat on a lake. You're very far away, and you look out on the lake, and you see something. It's like a white line, but you don't know exactly what it is. Then you get the binoculars out, and you look, and you're, oh, that's the wake of a boat, right? The
Yeah.
boat is doing all the work that creates the
Mm.
wake of success behind it. And if the
Mm-hmm.
boat stops, the wake will inevitably stop as well.
Yeah.
So, and then the last one is giving, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's we think that ease and comfort will get us there, and I promise
Mm.
you it won't. You might actually achieve it sometimes, but
Mm.
those that do achieve it they become victims of their own circumstances. Imagine
Mm.
for a moment somebody that you really love, that you really love them, maybe a parent or child, spouse, best friend. And imagine for a moment that you're on your deathbed at this age in your life, and you're not dead yet, but you're laying there, and they're holding your hand, and you're looking at them. What is your dying wish for them?
Mm.
Do you wish that they get the newest sports car in their favorite color? That their spouse has plastic surgery and looks exactly like they want them to look? That their bank account is that many digits bigger? I doubt you actually wish that. And if I can put
Mm.
it into words 1 second, I invite you and your listeners to think about this for a moment, because this is what I would wish for those I love very most. I wish that they have the capacity to struggle well.
Mm.
If
That's
they
so
can
good.
struggle, I picture my daughter in this moment. If
Mm.
I know that she has the ability, regardless of her circumstances, to struggle well and be fulfilled and be filled with gratitude, growth, and giving, and thus fulfilled, I
Mm.
know she is the victor of her life. No matter
Yeah.
what happens, what illness or difficulty or struggle or unfaithfulness of someone she cares for, or fill in the blank with all the stuff that bears
Mm.
us, drags us down at times, she's going to be okay. She's going to be
Mm.
fulfilled because
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't have to wait for her circumstances to be just so for her to be happy, for her to be
Yeah.
fulfilled.
That's
So that's
so
the
good.
hope I have for all of us. I would replace the bag of goods that were sold that we should try to obtain a life of ease and comfort with the belief that we have the capacity to struggle well. And as
Mm.
we do, we take control of the reins. We are now in control of our life. And whatever life throws at us, it no longer happens to us. Now everything in life is happening for us, for our betterment, for our growth, right? When something horrible happens, instead of saying, "Why, God, curse you?" instead we say, "Wow, God, you
Mm.
trust me enough to grow? This
Mm.
hurts. This sucks. I don't like this. But now I know
Yeah.
you trust me enough to grow so I can
Mm.
become more like you or become a better version of myself."
Yeah. That's so good. And I love that you're reframing struggle. It's almost like there's this acceptance in life that we're going to struggle. That's part of life. But how do we leverage it? And I love that. And just in sort of closing, this podcast is called The Next Brave Thing. And I can imagine even what was highlighted to me is that you had setbacks or failures in other companies on the way to building $1 billion company. And I'd love you to share what courage has looked like for you. Because I think that we're talking about getting out of your comfort zone, and that requires courage. So what has been a moment where you're like, oh, I had to pull on courage to stay in the game, especially battling sickness, losing your sister? There's a lot of, you can get through that, go to that offense mindset or the victim mindset real quick in those situations. But what does courage look like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's realizing that there's nothing special about me that allows me to not experience fear. And yet to realize that fear is not my enemy, right? I love a quote about courage, that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward in spite of it, right? To recognize my job isn't to change my life so I'm never in a situation that might cause me pain or
Mm,
fear, but to realize that I don't know what I'm doing. But what's so odd is that if I literally just sit down and vision having a conversation with the 80-year-old me, and he's happy and he's healthy and he's glowing and he's full of love and he's lived a great life, and I literally get to have a conversation with me candidly, because the older me will be candid. He has my
mm,
best interest in mind. He's not going to sugarcoat things. He's going to hit the nail on the head. He's not going to save my feelings. He's going to do what's best for me. What would his counsel be? And then to
mm,
follow that counsel. Because all too
yeah.
often, I think we'll recognize that we know what to do. Just
Hmm.
oftentimes, we don't want to ask. We want
Yeah.
to say, well, I have to work this job because I have the mortgage. Well, I
Mm,
have to do this because of that. And
hmm.
then, so sometimes it's so helpful to just play the little game. What if I could do
Mm,
anything? Literally anything. What would I do? What would that look
mm,
like? What would
mm,
life, who would I live with? Who would I marry? How would I treat my children? How much more would I put my phone down? How much more would I
mm,
look in their eyes? And going through this exercise, I think that we humans will be shocked at how often, if we decide what we would do, if we were held back by nothing, how often we could actually bring that idea, those concepts to life.
so powerful. I love that. That's so good. And in closing, you mentioned talking to your 80-year-old self or getting advice to your 80-year-old self. What would you say to your younger self, maybe at the time of diagnosis or a time of a setback? I could just imagine that there are young people listening, and sometimes the best charge we can hear is what people who have found success or found fulfillment would say to their younger self. Yeah, what would you say?
Yeah. So a little bit of an odd one. We touched on this from a variety of angles, but I would invite all of your listeners to imagine for a moment that a genie or an angel, whatever you want to call it, comes to you and says, "Hey, you got 2 years.
Mm,
2 years exactly, and then you're going to die. However, there's one carve out. If you let anybody know about this, you die immediately."
mm,
So now what do you do? Like, literally today, what would you change if you knew that? You got 2 years left. It's not so short you can just quit your job, so to speak, right? But how would you live differently if you literally only
mm,
had 2 years left and you couldn't tell anybody about it? Like,
mm,
my experience has been one of presence. My
mm.
experience has been one of putting things into perspective of what really matters and realizing that some things don't matter very much that we put a lot of energy and attention into. How
It's
many things
true.
do we focus on your deathbed you're not going to care about at all, but yet
Hmm.
it consumed you? And then things that you really will care about, key relationships, love, giving, light, kindness, those things sometimes can take the back burner to the urgent things that fill our plate. So my
Mm,
gift that I've experienced, candidly, the gift that cystic fibrosis has given me, is a similar experience to a genie saying, "All right, Lloyd, you got 2 years left. How are you going to live?"
mm, hmm.
And I find it causes me to be more present. It causes me to
Mm,
love my spouse more, be
hmm.
present with my children, treat them different, treat them with,
Mm,
with respect, be the person that my person on my deathbed, or my 80-year-old self, or the person in 2 years from now, if I will so die then, be that person. And we don't have to wait till we're 80. We don't have to wait till we're old and we get interviewed and we could say, I wish I would have started the business. I wish I would have asked the girl out. I wish I would have proceeded even though it was scary. I wish I would have had faith and, did this or that. We can literally do it. And if we fail, here's the trick. We feel like we held a die in our hands, a 6-sided die. And if we roll it and there's a 1 on top, we win. And if anything else, we lose. And so we innately say, oh, I'm pretty good at math. I know I got 1 in 6 chances of winning and 5 in 6 of losing. I'm not playing this game. So we don't even pick up the die. We think we're doing the smart choice by not picking it up. But the reality is, the magic is not rolling 1s all the time. The magic is rolling, and if it hits anything but a 1, you pick up the die and you roll again. You get unlimited rolls until you die. And so, look, we've had a lot of losses. We've had a lot more losses than we've had wins. But our success has been when we fail, we don't fail backwards. We fell forward because we're willing to say, that didn't work, pick it up and roll it again. That didn't work as well, and do it again and again. And then other people will someday say, my goodness, everything you touch turns to gold. Not realizing that I touched that die a lot of times.
Yeah. That's so inspiring, because it inspires anyone who's listening right now that feels like a failure. Is really just the success is getting back up. So I love that you share that. And I encourage all our listeners to go and order your book. You can listen to on audiobooks, and it's called Gcubed. And I'll have the link in the show notes along with your website to Becoming More Charity. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Lloyd. I really appreciate it.
No, pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much. If I can be of any assistance to you or your listeners, please let me know. And if there's someone out there that they would like a copy of Gcubed and it's just not in the budget, you don't have the $15 or whatever, please reach out. I'd be happy to gift you a copy.
But thank you everyone for listening today, and we look forward to seeing you next week.